And we're back. Welcome back. Anita?
Good afternoon, evening, whatever time it is where you're at. Roy, we were just talking about foundations, trust, personal, professional. What does this look like? Why are we talking about this? It's kind of like, what is it there for? Why are we talking about this information?
Well, we're there because there's a great need for all of us to be far more intentional about our relationships than we oftentimes are. You know, one of the greatest fallacies that I find when I talk to groups all over the world is that we assume trust in the relationship. We sort of self-reflect and think, why wouldn't they trust me? I'm a good person. I would always do them right, whether it's in business or otherwise. And yet we don't necessarily recognize where they've come from. You know, what were some of the things that they've experienced in the past. And so we have to be mindful and intentional of striving to look at first, what is it that I do? And so one of the things that we help people look at are a set of guiding principles that they can live by, questions, if you will, or challenges they can make of themselves to really determine how intentional are they in trying to build these high-level transformational relationships. And so the first one is, we really want to look at building trust from the inside out. So earlier I talked about trustworthiness, and that being kind of the idea of trusting yourself. That's the check. You know, when you think about the attributes of trustworthiness, we start with integrity. We look at attitude. We dig on focus. We dig on the idea of taking initiative, having insight in the things that we do, ultimately having a vision for something bigger than ourselves. So we build it from the inside out. We say first to ourselves, am I acting in a way that is going to engender trust with people? Am I acting in a way that will ultimately take me to the next step with what I'm doing? And then when we look at the next idea, it's taking responsibility for the relationship, right? Am I taking responsibility? Am I owning it? The difference between a car that you own and a car that you rent is what? You don't care when you turn it in at the end because you'll never see it again. Hopefully that's not true, but I've gotten in cars before where I think that's what the previous person did do. But when we own something, we have a greater sense of engagement with it. And so if we approach the relationship like that and we're building an authentic relationship with people, we can look at 6 ingredients and ask, where are the measures on these things? Am I really clear with my purpose and understanding who I am in that relationship and what maybe the expectations are of me in that? And clarity and purpose give a consistency to our behavior and to how we show up on a regular basis. Am I present in the relationship? You know, am I distracted all the time, or am I fully engaged with that person when they're in front of me? That also has to be a big measure of those ingredients. Am I respectful? You know, can I have an argument with you and then walk away with my dignity? You know, that's really at the end of the day, we've lost so much of that in our discourse anymore. And if you are respectful and you can have that, then you develop candor in a relationship, and authentic relationships are right with candor. You know, are people willing to speak the truth to me, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it puts them at risk? Because if I don't have that, I have blind spots. In fact, we all have blind spots. There are things that I do every day that annoy people. And if nobody's there to ring the bell and say, you got to stop doing that, I'm just going to keep running people off. Or if I'm acting in such a way, if nobody's ringing the alarm bell, I can't do it. But it's uncomfortable to be candid sometimes. Now, when you are candid, you have to be able to exercise forgiveness. And forgiveness has 2 big players here. One is the ability to forgive yourself and walk into that next chapter and fix or repair things sometimes. But it's also letting go of things that just don't matter. You know, not letting something somebody else did hold you back from what it is you're trying to do, what it is you need to achieve, and what you need to do to take care of yourself. And so we want to make sure that we have that. And when all of those things, when those ingredients are all present in that authentic relationship that we've taken responsibility for, there's transparency. And it's in transparency where we find that opportunity to really do things with people. Nita, you had a question?
Yeah, Roy, I just want to talk about what factor in trusting relationships, where do you get to the point where you assume the best when you're dealing with people, that you can come to a place where you have such trust, you assume the best, even if there's a misunderstanding, you assume the best of that person because of that trust?
Well, it's what I talked about earlier. That's the benefit of the doubt. You know, when you've gotten into a relationship and you know what it is, if you have that, it's easy to do what you just said and assume the best. It's far more difficult coming into it. But I also would tell you that if you have a high level of integrity, you reflect a high level of integrity with people. And in other words, I may suffer a few times because I'm more willing to give that and be vulnerable in giving that, because I know when it's returned to me, I'll have a higher level of trust with somebody. But if I don't have integrity, I will rarely give that as well. And so to your point, if you're not assuming the best, you're not setting up the right filter for people to engage and judge you for who you are and what you do. And then I would say that another of the guiding principles is to communicate consistently in what we do and deliver on the promises. So when we talk about being dependable, we're always going to fail. We're not going to deliver something on time. We're going to miss a deadline. We're going to do, but if I've kept my promises on the whole consistently and fully engaged with people, delivered consistently to them, given a consistent and reliable performance, and constantly evaluating how I'm doing in that. If those things are at practice and I'm communicating to manage expectations, if I let them know something's going to be late before the deadline, or if I'm managing expectations. And when we do that well, people are more likely and really do want to forgive us. They do. I mean, part of human nature is a desire, as you just pointed out, to want to give that benefit of the doubt. Why? Because it makes their life easier. It makes their life easier when they know they can do that and they don't have to worry about those things. And then the last thing, and I've already really touched on this more, I talked about earlier that when you're influential, you're a steward of your trust. And so we tell people to be a good steward of your trust. Be mindful who you've given this very valuable gift to, and hold them as accountable to these ideas and principles that we just talked about that you're holding others to. And get engaged with people and make commitments to the things that you do, and have the courage to finish. People who at the highest level of trust that we think about who are influential really took that measure of getting that kind of engagement and doing those kind of things. So that's a general overview of most of the information.
We really appreciate having you on, Roy. I think trust is now needing to be, it's part of us. It's part of who we are, but we've lost some trustworthiness along the way.
Sure.
And I think it's time to go back and get the skills, get the tools, go through the exercises, and learn how to be trustworthy. And also, like we've talked about before, is when trust is broken, it can be built back. And you said along the journey, it can actually strengthen that relationship. So I think this is not something that people can go, well, I'll just be trustworthy. I'll just be dependable. I'll be reliable. There's skills that you teach with the trust transformation. You have to think about that transformation. So it takes some time. You have to have those tools. You have to have those skills. But tell us, who do you work with? Is it just companies, corporations? Who can approach you and say,
sure,
Roy, I'd like to investigate what you can do for us and what outcomes we can expect from using your evidence-based course?
Yep. So my full-time job is with Advent Health, and we're one of the largest healthcare providers in the U.S., based out of Orlando, Florida. This is where we do most of our work. We've trained quite a few thousand employees in our main organization here. So if they were to send me an email at roy.reid@adventhealth.com, I'd be able to get them information and follow up with them.
So anybody can send you that email. You can work with anybody. Yeah.
Well, I can certainly respond to things and provide information, so we can do a variety of different things for them.
That sounds really good. And thank you so much. Before we end, Anita, do you have any last closing comments?
I think this is probably going to be one of the first many building blocks, this 3-part series of other things that we contribute to humanity and mankind and help us all to have better relationships, personally and professionally, and mentor and duplicate those kind of things. I'm excited.
Awesome.
I say if everybody in the country starts this trust transformation tomorrow, what would it look like in 3 months from now?
Right.
Now, not everybody's going to do that, but wouldn't that be nice?
Would. I sure would.
Okay. Thank you so much, Roy. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't watched all 3 parts, please go back and watch what you missed. And please feel free to reach out and contact Roy Reid. His contact information will be in the description box below. This has been TotallyT, your Solutions Girl, co-hosted by Anita Corrigan. Thank you, Roy.